Hello there, and welcome to another episode of the State of Decay 2 coverage series. I'm your host, Arky, and today's video is about how State of Decay 2's loot system works, and also how you can navigate finding your most wanted items by breaking down how exactly the developers went about placing items and resources at many locations of interest. That is not the only thing you will be learning today, because this video contains a lot of State of Decay 2 development insight, and many things you will learn are well worth me taking the time to discuss. So first off, we gained this information from an article posted by a developer gaming blog site called Gamasutra. And this article was very long, and in it contained a lot of really technical, which many of it I am not able to break down to its fullest here in depth. So I have taken some of the most interesting and worthwhile info for you, the fellow fans, and have organized it here for you to be able to understand and take the information as it is. So let's start off first with how the loot system works within State of Decay 2. Heads up, this is very important information, so listen closely as I break down this developer quote. I quote, "Loot in State of Decay 2 is distributed through a few different procedural systems, each of which serves its own purpose. Containers where loot can be procedurally populated are placed by hand, but no loot drop itself on any location is hand placed. Every time we generate a map, a variety of items and resources and loot and vehicles are distributed according to this process. Some elements will be the same across multiple instances of the same map. Every map guarantees that every gas station site has at least one gas can. Some elements will be very different. Say for example that across the whole map we want to drop, say, 25 normal melee weapons. These aren't guaranteed to show up in any certain site, but are instead distributed procedurally across all sites, into containers whitelisted to make sense, dropping items of certain implied physical size, which makes sense for them." End quote. So what this basically means is that the weapons and resource spawning in any single map will be procedurally spawned to negate the feeling of randomness and loss of resource size proportion. So in layman's terms, if you see a container that looks like a small box, the chances of finding a large shotgun are impossible. But finding a comparable sized crate in a location might bear some shotgun fruit. This tidbit also contains information about how resource and items will for the most part correlate with the type of site you are in, whether that be a military outpost filled with military grade resource or a construction site with less weapons but more building material. Quote, "Site type guarantees are used to ensure we match players' expectations when they go to loot sites that strongly telegraph certain kinds of loot. Construction sites will always have at least one rucksack of material, and gas stations will always have at least one gas can item that can be used to refuel a car." End quote. This continues on stating that though these procedures will always occur, the placement and location of resources may not always be the same and will be randomly generated throughout the different site types. And if I may add, that system will add a level of replayability that most open world games lack, because I know many of us like to restart and restart and restart after we beat the game, and every time we restart we can expect for items and resource to not always be at the same places, so that adds a level of exploration back into our second to third to fourth playthrough. So this next part describes how players will see where lootable locations of interest are. I quote, "Between resource quotas and site type guarantees, we fill in data on the map the player sees for any site they have scouted, telling them if there exists any potential to find certain resources there. This lets players self-select what resources to pursue with a reasonable amount of confidence that they will find what they seek. Rarely 100%, but high enough that the cost in time, health, items, and danger should feel worthwhile." End quote. So this confirms that when scouting, players will gain new insight to the site's lootable resource and give players a better idea of lootable locations that are worth the danger of seeking the location's sweet loot. So on that, what we are getting into next is very important information that every State of Decay 2 fan needs to know about how looting within multiplayer works. I quote, "In multiplayer, additional loot is distributed in containers that aren't openable in single player. In an effort to encourage cooperative over competition, the game only allows the player a lootable object belongs to open it, after which they can share out its content if they feel so inclined. The team also focused on trying to equally distribute containers throughout larger structures. So what this means is when you're in multiplayer with your friends, when you enter a lootable location, the items and their placements will not be the same, and your co-op partners will be able to open different lootable crates or boxes to obtain resource. This is an awesome way to provide even more incentive for playing with friends, because in theory, when you enter a location, the lootable items inside the location will be player specific and will allow for more breathing room. Especially if you are doing a group community where all resource goes to the host to use for the furtherment of their own personal community and game. This also allows for some awesome trading and bartering moments between players out in the field of looting. This next part describes how mission items are placed and what system they use to ensure that the mission items will be obtained. I quote, "Missions in State of Decay 2 try to tell heavily contextualized stories, and the loot system is called upon to deliver on this. To do so, when missions need to put an item in a site, we use the same whitelist we'd use to decide if the container in that site would be able to drop that item. So a baseball bat comes out of a large storage, and not an end table, for example. On the off chance nothing is appropriate to find the loot you seek, all sites have what's called a fallback container, often a large cardboard box, which we can use to supply an item called for by a specific narrative into any site that lacks a more appropriate container." End quote. So to break that down, basically what is being said is that in every location there is a backup storage that you can find a mission item in if any said location does not have an available storage unit for that mission item. So that's the end of everything we learned about looting and resource and how it works in State of Decay 2. But with a caveat, there is a lot more information we learned about other things. So what I've decided is to make it into parts. So this is the first part, and there is actually 2 more to come throughout this week. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. We learned a lot of cool new things, and it's really great to see how this game was made and what are the intricate, simulated, procedurally generated systems at work. So I want to say this, something really big is kind of brewing behind the scenes right now. Everything will be super clear in the beginning of May, so I hope you guys can stay tuned. If you guys did enjoy this part, I really would like you to hit that like button, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe. Let's get to 4,000 subscribers by July. Let's do that. But yeah, something big is coming, and I'm super excited, and I cannot wait. Here's to May, guys. Here's to May. It's gonna be I can't swear. It's gonna be an awesome month for the channel and for the State of Decay fan base. So I just cannot wait. So I hope you guys enjoyed. As always, I love you guys. I'll see you in the next part. The next part, I'll give you a hint. It's all about zombies and their spawning. I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you. Peace.